Every great creative work stands on the shoulders of giants. Welcome to RetroInspection, where we examine and find out where the things we love today came from.
Well, let's talk about the actual method of vampire transmission, blood sucking.
Yep.
That's, as a normal human being, we don't like to be preyed upon. And almost every life form hates the idea, at least innately, the idea of parasitism. And, we're confronted with things like mosquitoes and ticks, fleas. We see them infect our animals, and, we've got these ticks that grow giant with blood after, preying upon our best friends, the dogs, and it's just this kind of fear that we get from it and loathing works its way into our fear and maybe even the origination of vampire lore.
Sure. I mean, it's all going to flow together. Again, if we go back far enough with these myths and all the various things that could have gone into them, we're talking about the guesses of people who didn't know where the sun went at night. So they're making up stories, just trying to guess at how things work. And they go, so-and-so, some poor bastard has, anemia, 20,000 years ago. And somebody else goes, well, maybe his blood's bad because something's drinking it. Or somebody, like a hemophiliac, they just go, well, maybe something has given him this wound that will not heal and will eventually kill him. Plus then you still have this thing of people sometimes, and this persists again, even into Victorian times, people get sick. They give the appearance of death. If nobody's going to bother trying to do it like a proper embalmment, let alone any kind of post-mortem, they end up just planting the guy. And then he wakes up at some point, he's in a coffin, which gives rise to their whole coffin alarm industry with the little bell on a stick coming up out of the grave and a string in the casket. So you can ring the bell if you turn out to actually be alive.
Well, and that's not even to say if someone was disinterred after being dead for a couple weeks,
right?
And you see that, oh my goodness, the nails or the hair have grown, but that's part of desiccation. It's not really what's happening. And they see the gums recede and the teeth become more canine in appearance, that kind of thing.
Yeah, or depending on soil composition, moisture levels within the casket, if it's a really well-sealed casket sometimes, or sometimes if it's not, and certain ground chemicals leach into it, calcium. If that gets it, if enough of that surrounds the body can actually be remarkably well preserved. I mean, it's almost a form of mummification, except that it just happens by chance, given the soil conditions in which somebody is buried.
So, in terms of Dracula historically, and what Stoker may have taken as a historical inspiration, the things that I refer back to are maybe Vlad the Impaler and Elizabeth Bathory.
Yeah.
What about those two? What about even there's another couple people who were
Gil de Rais is the one I keep thinking of, because he was a French nobleman, but also a prolific murderer of children, and he drank their blood. Elizabeth Bathory would have peasants kidnapped. She was a countess, would have peasants kidnapped, exsanguinated. She would bathe in their blood as a means of trying to prolong her youth. Vlad Tepes, just a general, mass murdering monster. With the impalements meant to serve as a warning, a picket of horror against any Ottomans that might try and invade his territory.
So there were actual people, well, except for Vlad. Vlad really, I mean, maybe he was.
It's not known. It's not known that he was a blood drinker. He was just a mass murderer and torture freak. Yeah.
So he had plenty of historical precedents to draw upon, though. Is
Of
basically
literal of human monsters to draw from. Yes. As part of this myth. I mean, he did do Stoker did a lot of research. He had lots of notes. He had done research into the folklore concerning vampires. There were also just some things he kind of created out of whole cloth. Yeah.
And if we'll talk about the novel in detail later, but when Harker is in, one of the characters is in Transylvania, you get the sense that all of that there was a great deal of knowledge that Stoker had garnered about that region and about that folklore and about those customs. So he was there. You don't have a sense that he was necessarily making everything up out of whole cloth. He was taking things from the.
Yes, but you also have to understand that, particularly in that era, Northwestern Europeans had a horror, a specific horror of the Balkans, of Eastern Europe. It was regarded as a dark, savage land populated by monstrous peasants, Slavs. I mean, there was a tremendous amount of racism against Slavs. So, they were afraid of those people. They were afraid of Roma and Sinti people. So there's a whole thing about, like, the magic people, of the dark East, that kind of stuff. So just setting it in Transylvania, setting it in some place like that in the Carpathian Mountains, that's going to do some of Stoker's work for him. I mean, he never even actually visited those places, but he does that. And then he draws in Eastern European creatures like Tepes and Bathory. So and takes elements from them. That's going to do a lot of his atmosphere setting for him just there. I mean, he could have said anything he wanted, and Victorian English writers would have believed it.
Like, subscribe, repost, share everywhere. To see what else we're up to, visit xynobooks.com, xenobooks.com.